All right, good morning. My name is Sam Lewis. I'm an assistant director in the Office of Admission here at Teachers College. First and foremost, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for choosing to join us for today's virtual session. So great to have you all here. A few housekeeping items. Today's session will be recorded. So if you would like to have access to this recording at a later time for any reason, please feel free to connect with our office for further details and information. You can reach out to us at our general admission inbox at admission@tc.columbia.edu, and we'd be happy to share the recording with you. The other housekeeping item at the bottom of your screens, you should have a chat feature as well as a Q&A feature. Please only use that chat feature if you're experiencing any technical difficulties or would just like to connect with me for something unrelated to today's Q&A. And then the Q&A feature is there for those who would like to send us in questions throughout the entire session for our host and our panelists to answer at the end of the session. To test this out, go ahead and use the Q&A feature to tell us where you're tuning in from and your program of interest. We love to just get a feel of the audience and where everyone is from. So go ahead and use that feature to send us in what you're studying or your program of interest and where you're tuning in from. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. And then for those of us who are just joining, we're just using the Q&A feature to chat in where you're from and what you're interested in studying here at Teachers College. So we have some folks from Canada interested in curriculum and teaching, some folks from Ghana, early childhood education, folks still exploring programs, totally fine, counseling, psychology, special education. Awesome. So without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Denise, who will begin the presentation. Again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam. Hi, everybody. I'm going to introduce myself in just a little bit, but welcome to the session called Exploring the Student Experience at Teachers College. You have probably maybe engaged or you're going to engage with info sessions for programs that you're specifically interested in. But what we wanted to do is give you a taste of what the overall TC student experience is like. So we're going to cover many topics today and also talk to a panel of students. So who am I? So as I said, my name is Denise. I'm the Executive Director of Graduate Student Life and Development. And so we often call that office GSLD. And so that is one of the many offices that we'll be just talking very briefly about today. But my role on campus is really to make sure that students feel connected to the campus community, that they have the resources that they need, and that they're able to just find a sense of belonging at TC. What we'll be covering is we'll be quickly talking about the Division of Student Affairs, which is the division that I work in, and what all those offices can provide to TC students. A taste of what students have access to here on campus. So I'll be going over specifically what my office does, which is just a taste of what one office does provide for students at TC. I'll talk quickly about how to learn more and stay connected. So there's ways for, even as a prospective student, for you to just stay connected with what we're doing on campus, to see all the activity that we have going on. Then we're going to get to the highlight of the session, which is a panel of students. So I have three amazing students here with me today that you'll get to know. And I'm going to ask them a series of questions. But as Sam said, I would love for you to use the Q&A feature through Zoom to add any questions that you have throughout the session. We'll leave time at the end, about 15 to 20 minutes, to get to those questions that you specifically have. There might be some questions you have specifically for your program or that we might not be able to answer. But if we do get those questions, Sam and I will make sure that you get the answers to those questions after the session. And that's about it. So I'm going to keep going. So the Division of Student Affairs. So again, as a student at TC, you're going to be welcomed by your faculty, but you're going to be welcomed by a number of offices. I'm quickly going to talk about these offices, but there's a caveat at the bottom. And so while the Division of Student Affairs has all of these offices here to support you, there are many other offices at the college that support students that aren't listed. That includes Residential Services, the Office of Diversity and Community Affairs, OASID, which is our office to support students with disabilities, international students and scholars. There's a number of them. And admissions hosts different sessions for you to get to know those offices. But DSA, or the Division of Student Affairs, is a number of offices that really focus on student support, offering programs, and intentional development of you while you're here. So I'm going to quickly go through each of those offices and what they provide. So the first is not an office, it's actually a student group, and it's called Student Senate. I actually had the Student Senate Vice President in my office right before we started this call. So at TC, we do have a lively and active Student Senate, which is a group of senators. There's 2 senators per department. They meet every other Monday, and on the off weeks, they meet in committees. And so what they make sure is that the student voice is represented throughout the college. Every month, the Student Senate President and Vice President meets with the President and the Provost of the college. So that's tomorrow. So there really is an active exchange between the leadership and the student body. For me, this is really unique at a graduate school. You don't always get kind of this student advocacy and student voice present where the leadership is always engaged and listening. And so I think it's really special to TC and something that should you come here and are interested in, you really should look out for. Graduate Student Life and Development is my office. I'm not going to go into depth about that because I have a few slides to talk about what we do. And the Graduate Writing Center is also a part of my office, so I'm going to save that for just a few minutes. Student Support and Advocacy is a new office that we have here at the college that we really, really are excited to be featuring. So at TC, and this could be a whole session of itself, we are an affiliated school of Columbia University. So what that means is that we have a partnership with Columbia where our degrees are accredited by Columbia. You can take classes over at Columbia. Our faculty are tenured through Columbia, but we do stand independent as our own institution. We have our own cabinet, our own president, our own leadership. But we share a lot of resources with Columbia. So this office is really to make sure that students are taking full advantage of Columbia Health and other health-related and wellness-related resources, even spiritual life over at Columbia that TC students have full access to, but may not always realize. This office can also support a student in crisis if they need emergency funding, if they have to go to the hospital, if they experience a death in the family, really helping students through those unexpected needs that sometimes are difficult to navigate, especially if you're far away from home. TC Next is our career development office, so you might not realize that from the title. But it's an amazing office that it has 2 branches. One branch of TC Next is really to develop meaningful partnerships with employers across not just New York City, but the world and the United States. So what we want to do is make sure that our employers around the world really understand what TC is, what we offer, and what our students can bring to their businesses. And then the other half of TC Next focuses on really supporting the students, giving free career coaching, helping you with your resumes, your cover letters, offering events to help you network with different employers or even learn how to network. And TC Next, because we're at a graduate school, they focus on folks who this might be their first time getting a job, or they're really prepared to also help with our career changers or folks who have been in their industries but are looking to advance in a different way. So they're another great resource that we have here at TC, totally free for students. And then we have our Vice Provost for Student Affairs, which all the panelists on this call know. His name is Tom Rock. He's truly the friendliest person I've ever met in my life. You can look him up. He just ran his 15th New York City Marathon, but he's a proud TC alum himself. He's been at the college for many years, and he's just a really great support. So if you've been at other institutions, a Vice Provost might be someone you never see or don't talk to. Tom Rock is the complete opposite. You'll see him all around campus. He meets with students about any need they have, and he's just a really invaluable resource that we have here at TC. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what my office specifically offers students. And again, this is just for you to be reminded that should you choose to come to TC, there are so many people in place here at the campus that are really thinking about your well-being, your development, and how to make the most of this opportunity. So GSLD, Graduate Student Life and Development, we really focus on supporting the student outside of the classroom. We do provide skills and resources that help you in the classroom, but we really want to make sure that you have a fully enjoyable experience both here at TC, and then we also focus on connecting you to New York City. I like to think about things in branches, which you've already heard me talk about. So in our office, what we really focus on is academic engagement and support and community and belonging. So academic engagement and support, what I mean by that is first and foremost the GWC. So the Graduate Writing Center is a standalone center, but it falls in the umbrella of my office. If you look online, there's so much that's there. So what the GWC offers is we do free writing consultations for students. There's weekly appointments, and that's a one-on-one session. Sometimes they're a half hour, sometimes they're an hour. All our writing fellows are trained either master's or doctoral students who really are there to support you through navigating kind of your writing. They're not there to specifically edit your paper word by word, but they're going to read your papers with you or any writing piece that you have and really help with guiding questions to think about where you want to take the piece, how you're feeling about your writing skills, what they might suggest in terms of resources to really strengthen it. They also do workshops. So we just did a back to basics series for 6 weeks that's just focused on like the nitty gritty of the writing essentials. So that's really helpful if maybe English isn't your first language, or if you're somebody like me who took a break from being in school and now is returning again. And then they do sessions on how to use different academic software, citations, etc. So the GWC is wonderful, and again, free to students. We have a lot of doctoral student initiatives. So you'll see a few over there, which is the DI5 and Doc Table Talk. So if you are somebody who is joining us as a doctoral student, we really look for ways to celebrate you. Last year we implemented where when anybody passed their dissertation, we invite them to our office to pick up a bottle of champagne, and then we kind of scream, "There's a doctor in the house," and we like to all cheer. So there's things to look forward to as a doctoral student, but we're also really thinking intentionally about how to connect you more with faculty, how to hear from faculty about how they navigated their own doctoral experience, and just ways to really not only give you those celebration moments, but to give you those skills to navigate being a doctoral student, because it can be really difficult or sometimes just confusing, right? So we want to make sure that folks are in community navigating that experience together. First Gen students, it is First Gen week. Happy First Gen week. If you are First Gen, we're celebrating all week. So right now my office is really lively because we're giving away free cookies to First Gen students. But we really want to make sure that First Gen students also really understand that there's a huge success in just being a graduate student and being the first in your family to do that. So we offer workshops, skill-based workshops, things around imposter syndrome, et cetera. And then again, moments of celebration. Competitions and workshops, you see DI5 is the dissertation in 5 minutes or less. We also do the 3MT, the 3-minute thesis. So we try to find ways to bring in your academic identity into this sense of competition and fun. And then we do offer workshops. So right now we're building out a series on statistics. And then we are the office that offers new student orientation. So should you choose to come to TC, we welcome you with the biggest welcome we can. This year we did it both online and in person. We did a TC talk show where candy fell from the sky magically. But then we also featured a lot of our senior leaders and our faculty. But again, as a TC student, we want to make sure that you have everything you need as you prepare to go to grad school. And again, I think this is what sets us apart from other institutions that you might be considering, because sometimes grad students are not the priority if it is a school that includes undergrads. But for us, you are our priority. You are the incoming class we're thinking about. And we really want to make sure orientation speaks to your needs as graduate students. Community and belonging. Again, I'm going to go through this quickly, but there's a lot of things we do to make you feel connected. So again, if you would be moving to TC from out of state or out of country, we want to provide opportunities for you just to feel kind of just like that you have folks here around you and with you. And even if you're from New York City, which I am, we want to do things to help you even explore the city that you have lived in, because there's so many things I have not done as somebody who has grown up here. So quickly, President Chats. So every month, President Bailey hosts a student chat. I'm hosting one tonight with him. And all I can say is our president loves to get to know students. He's a senior faculty member. He's been with the college for 30 years. He's so impressive. Again, if you're thinking about TC, just look into his research, because to be led at a college by somebody who cares about educational reform is, I think, a gift. And so we're lucky to have a president who not only kind of walks the walk of what the college kind of hopes to instill in students, but then he also provides a lot of opportunities to connect and know students so he can take that into meetings where he's really strategically thinking about the college. I'm going to go this way. So GSA week is Graduate Student Appreciation Week. It's every April. It's just when we like to have a lot of fun and celebrate our students. You see 2 students there with our graphic tee from last year that was designed by a student that many of us know and love, Ricardo. And so it's just another fun way for us to celebrate students. We did a bunch of outings, a bunch of free giveaways. Provost Student Excellence Award is an award ceremony. So there are so many TC students who do such monumental things both on campus and off campus. So we find ways to celebrate them and really recognize them there. Taste of Harlem is a week-long event that we do in October. We think it's really important for students to get to know the Harlem community. And so if you're not familiar with Harlem in New York City, it is a beautiful historical community that is here that offers so much. And we want to make sure that our students feel a connection to the place that they live in. So you see students there on a walking tour of the Apollo. Nick, one of our panelists, is in that photo. And I'm going to keep going. So student parents, if you are a student who has children, we think about you quite a lot in my office. We just did our first ever family day where we invited those students to bring their children on campus for a day of fun. So we have a student parent coordinator who really is here to connect with you and support you as you navigate being both a parent and a student, and sometimes even then also being a working professional. Already talked about Student Senate, so I'm going to pass over that one. Student organizations, we have about 40 student organizations that are just for and by TC students. TC students can also join student organizations over at Columbia University, which is, again, a benefit of our partnership. Here you see the National Association of Art Educators. I'm doing a paint and sip event, so a lot of our student organizations do both social events and also events that help with your own professional development. And then last is we have a student life ambassador program. So that's for students who, let's say you get here and you're like, I don't know how to make friends. You can join this program. So if you live in the residence halls, you get a community assistant. But if you don't live in the residence halls, you might not know where to start to get a group of students to just hang out with. So this is an example where Nick, again, one of our panelists, took a group of students to a Broadway show. So the SLAs plan programs for students, and sometimes it's just for people in their cohort, and sometimes it's open to the full student community. But it's just a way for you to hear from another student. They write emails that are written in like their own language every other week instead of getting one of these like very formal newsletters. But it's just a great way to be connected and get to explore the city with others. Sorry if I talked really fast. Again, I'm from New York, but I wanted to get through that, but then still get to the panel. So I have 2 more slides. So you might be like, wow, this is so much information. When I'm a student, how can I learn about this? The good thing is we've been really thinking about how we communicate to students. So this might look overwhelming, but we're strategic in all the newsletters we send. So each of our areas in the office sends a newsletter to students, and it really recaps all your resources, because we firmly believe, many of the staff here, that you should know what you have access to. And we want to make sure that should you want to, you can fully take advantage of it. So should you enroll as a student here, we will send you all these emails. We have targeted ones, so you'll see that we do one just for student parents that focus on family resources. We do one just for doctoral students that really help identify kind of the skill building workshops or grants that relate to your research. And then there's just weekly and monthly newsletters that go to all students. So I just like to point this out because, again, sometimes you might have experienced you're on a university campus that maybe isn't the best at communicating to you everything you have access to, but we really, I think, go above and beyond with that. And then last but not least, so right now, as a student who's not, or as a prospective student, you won't get our mailings, but if you want to keep up with what we're doing, I highly recommend following our offices on Instagram. We are active on social media. Alice, who's on the panel, actually runs the GSLD Instagram. But it's just a good way just to see kind of the activity, right? Because I think if you're still trying to figure out if you could picture yourself at TC, sometimes it's great to see the pictures of what's going on around campus, especially if you can't visit right now. So highly, highly recommend you follow us. I mean, I'm biased, but I think the first Instagram is pretty great, but they're all good. And then we also just started posting on LinkedIn as well. So you can follow the Division of Student Affairs on LinkedIn, and we're trying our best to really publicize everything we're doing for students. Okay, I went through that pretty quickly, but it was, again, just a taste of kind of the offices in place, the things that we're thinking about, the things that we're delivering for students. And there's so much more. Admissions sometimes does different sessions with different offices, but you probably won't retain a lot. Should you be admitted, then admissions and my office works together to put on a series of workshops, virtual workshops, for you to get to know those different offices between your time of deposit and then also your first day of classes. So don't worry about that. You don't need to memorize what every office does now. But what we're hoping is that we instill a sense of just offices that care here at TC. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Ooh, wow. And I'm seeing my face again. So I'm going to take a breath. I see, the chat. It is nice to see people from all over the world joining us today. We have 45 people on the call, which is very, very exciting. But now I'm excited because I don't have to speed talk for the next hour, because I am joined by 3 really amazing people who are current students at TC and are the best people to learn from. So how this is going to work is my panelists are going to go ahead and introduce themselves. I'm going to ask a question to the group. I'm always going to start with one panelist and other panelists will join in should they have anything to add to the question. Again, highly recommend if you have a question for the panelists that you go ahead and start entering those questions now. Please use the Q&A function. If you can't figure out how to use the Q&A function, you can chat it to me, no problem. I would usually say cool to a room that I'm staring at, but I can't see any of the listeners. So we will just keep moving forward. So to my panelists, now is the time to shine. If you all can go ahead and introduce yourselves, so if you could share a bit about who you are, where you came from, what brought you to TC, and what you're studying. I'm going to go in order of my screen, so we're going to start with Alice.
Hi, so my name is Alice, and I'm in the second year of the Arts Administration Master's Program here at TC, and I am an international student from Latvia. I chose TC because I knew it had one of the best arts administration programs in the country, but also because of the school's reputation. And just when I started getting all the communications from TC, I just kind of realized that it felt very much like a place that cares about students and is very welcoming. And so it wasn't difficult for me to make my decision once I started to just kind of hear more from the offices here. And yeah.
Great. Thanks, Alice. Next up, I have Vic.
Thanks, Denise. I'm glad to give you a break from talking so much. Welcome, you all. My name is Vic. I'm both a doctoral student in the philosophy and education program at Teachers College in my third year and a community assistant on campus. So I know a lot about the ins and outs of the housing process and what that looks like. As to why I came to TC, I have two primary reasons. Like Alice mentioned, my program is not only well respected, but I was reading the research coming out of my program and it just excited me a lot. So I really wanted to be in a space where I could interact and interface with the faculty and students who were contributing to this research. And the second reason, which contributes to the first, is when I was applying to TC and I reached out to the folks in the program, they actually invited me to come to a class, spend time with the current doctoral and master's students. So I just really felt a sense of true community. And I think it's easier to say that we're building community, but it's much harder to show that you're building a community. And so I really felt like all the ways in which each program has like a colloquium series, a speaker series. And I think those really do help when you're learning about each other in the program. And I should mention, I'm an international student too, from Mumbai in India. So I'm excited to also talk about coming to TC and New York for the first time. But those are my reasons for coming.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Vic.
Yeah.
And last but not least, we have Nick.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So my name is Nick. I'm in the International Educational Development Program. I'm originally from like a rural part of Southwest Minnesota. Prior to coming to TC, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in East African country of Uganda, taught English in South Korea for a little bit. So my reason for coming to Teachers College, it was a lot of like academic reasons. So the theoretical side of my program was started at Teachers College, and we have a huge faculty on campus that have a lot of experience in the field. So those are my reasons for coming to Teachers College.
Cool. Thank you all. So my next question kind of relates to something that you all started talking about, is like how you made that decision. So I kind of want to like invite you all to reflect back of like those big questions that came up of like, should I do this or should I not do this, right? Like your kind of deal breakers. So if you can talk through kind of like what are some of those either worries you had or things you had to consider, and then how you made that decision to finally commit to TC. So we'll start with Nick.
Yeah, thank you. So I kind of touched on this a little bit, but my program, the theoretical side, was started here. It's one of the best programs in the world, which was ultimately my deciding factor to come here. We have such an amazing faculty on campus that are very supportive, and this is something that came up in my research of places. But then ultimately, I think the location of Teachers College in New York City allows a lot of connections outside of school. So there's a lot of different agencies and organizations to partner with here on campus. And I think that was one of my biggest deciding factors. Was there was a number of NGOs that I was interested in interning with in New York, and had that opportunity.
Yeah, and something people don't know is Nick loves food and is also really good, not at just exploring the NGOs, but exploring all the restaurants in New York City.
Yeah, that was a big factor for me, is that coming from rural Midwest, I wanted to get away from that. And yeah, coming to New York, the food scene here is amazing, especially in Queens, where I spend a lot of time.
Thanks for the Queens shout out. Alice or Vic, anything you want to add to this question?
I think one thing I would love to add is that when you're applying and looking at your program, I was applying with a few friends too, and they were applying to a few programs at TC. If you think that there's only one pathway out of the program, you're probably wrong. Because I thought that, all my peers, if I got into the program, would only become academics or could only go down that track. But they work for foundations, they work for the government if they want, they work in different ways. So have an open mind about the possibilities that your program can offer you. And if you feel inclined, reach out to a doctoral student or master's student in the program, because I was really surprised by what folks were doing with this after this program, because it totally upset what I thought you could do. So yeah.
Alice, anything to add?
I think Nick covered a lot of it, because for me, it was also a large part of it was the location, because especially for my program, being in New York City is it's just amazing because, of the history and so many arts organizations that are, world-class arts organizations. And there are so many opportunities to just learn outside of the classroom as well. So the location was definitely a big factor in my decision.
Yeah. And, I am biased, but New York City is a really great place. And I think it's a big draw, right? Because what's important for you while you're thinking about your learning and your development is not only what you learn in the classroom, but how you can apply it outside, and then like what you can connect with in the city, right? So New York City is amazing because not only do we have everything we offer at TC, but you can attend things at Columbia, at Barnard. You can attend things down at NYU if you wanted to. The museums offer so much. Like there's so much happening in the city for free that you could just attend. And so I think it provides a rich cultural experience. So I guess with that, I am going to shift to our New York City question that we have for the panelists. So for all of you, this was your first time living in New York City, which I'm sure it was overwhelming, right? Like as amazing and marvelous as it also is like a huge shock if you've never lived in here or even visited for the first time. So what might you suggest to somebody who this would be their first time either moving or living in New York City? What do they need to take in consideration, and what are the things to look forward to? We'll start with Vic.
Yeah, thanks, Denise. I've been thinking about this one, and I think a big thing for me was once I learned how to get myself around the city, like literally move around the city by subway, buses, or whatever, I felt like a sense of freedom. I was like, okay, I can go to Queens, I can go to the Bronx, I can go to Brooklyn, right? So I think that's a really big piece of it. And I will say at TC, your cohort and your peers become your group. So we would like go into little spaces and go try food and things like that. So I think that's a huge part about coming to the city. And I think the other thing which Denise mentioned, which is so true, is there's so much stuff you can do for free. So, and also through the offices at TC, my first Broadway show ever was because of an office at TC. So I'm never going to forget that, because I was like, oh, how do I navigate going to a show? Like, what do I wear? I asked all the questions to the folks at TC, and they were like, do this, do that. And it was a great experience. So I feel like when you're coming to a big city, it's a lot to take in. And so don't feel like you have to do everything now. You have time. You really do. But I think there's a lot of wonderful opportunities that TC helps you organize. And then the other piece is just exploring it for yourself. So yeah, that's what I would want to offer with my response. Yeah.
Nick, Alice, anything to add?
Yeah, mine is a little bit different. So I guess my advice would be to like plan early. Finding housing in New York City can be slightly difficult. There are different ways that TC is able to assist in this. We have resident housing, we have housing just off campus that is associated with Teachers College. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but just planning ahead and having this be something that you're thinking about on your radar as you are applying here is just knowing that you're going to have to find housing. I mean, TC will be able to help definitely with that. I personally don't live on campus. I live off campus and I love the neighborhood that I live in. And yeah. Also, another note, I think it's really easy to get complacent when you live in like a new city and like to get set in the same routines and all of those things. So my advice would be to step out of your comfort zone while you're living here. New York City is a huge city with just so many different things to do. So I like to try to do new things as much as possible, things that I've never done before. Some examples, I've never been to a musical before coming to Teachers College, and now I've been to so many, and I love talking about it. Denise and I debate about which are the best musicals that we've been to. So just breaking out of your comfort zone and being able to try new things and new experiences. You can really learn so much in New York City outside of the classroom, and just being open to those experiences will make your experience here so much better.
Alice?
Yeah, I agree for sure. I think there is so much to do in New York City that, I'm in my second year and I have done so many things, but I already feel like, oh my gosh, I will not be able to like do and see everything I want to before graduation. So I think, yeah, just, and for example, like I like going to museums, and there are so many great museums in the city. And as Teachers College students, you also get free access to, or free entry to many museums. So that's like, there's a lot to take advantage of. And I just recommend really like in your free time to see as much as you can. And also for me, I would say I would recommend strongly considering living on campus, because I think when I was thinking about whether to live on campus or look for places outside, it was like stressful, but I think like it's really like the housing on campus is really nice, and it's just so convenient to be like here and very close. And like I've only had like positive experiences with the Office of Residential Services. So if you're like trying to decide in terms of housing, like I personally would recommend the housing on campus. And the neighborhood is really nice. Just if you don't want to go anywhere, I love Morningside Heights. There's like so much to do here as well, like restaurants, cafes, just like parks. I love the Riverside Park, which is right by our campus. I love going walking there and things like that. So I think, yeah, this is a great place to be.
Denise, can I jump in for a second? Because both Nick and Alice have mentioned housing, and as the person who's worked on housing for 3 years, I need to say something for my team.
Yeah.
Okay. As Nick and Alice have both mentioned, I also am a strong advocate that when you're first moving to the city, TC housing can be a really good setup for you. Because the thing is, you have a team of community assistants, of which I'm a part, and the office, who organize programming for residents specifically, whether it's navigating the city or getting to know your community, right? And it's a lot of students who do live on campus. So I wanna highlight that. And the other thing is there are many types of housing as well. So there's family housing, there's single units, and there's suite living, so it's shared spaces. So there are many options offered by TC2. So don't just think of it as just a room, right? It's actually many setups for you. And I think, as Nick really did mention, if you are interested in housing, apply early, because if you're thinking about it, a lot of folks are thinking about it. So I just had to shout out I'm wearing my ORS jacket right now, so I had to just shout it out for folks. ORS folks, I hope you heard that.
No, I love it. Dwayne's going to love it. No, I think it's such a good point. A lot of our international students do live on campus. If you've never lived in a big urban city before, it's definitely a good idea. But you can live off campus, and Nick is a good example of that. But New York City housing market it's tricky. There's a lot of people moving to the city every year who are all in the same boat as everybody looking for housing. So, I think to Nick's point, I've heard a lot of students who think they can look for an apartment just like 1 to 2 weeks in advance. And it's like, ooh, no. So as soon as you get admitted to TC, start really thinking about if you're moving here, where you want to live, how you're going to do it, your timeline. Because I do think it's important to be strategic with that, because it'll help you feel good when you first start classes to be all settled in and make the right decision for you. But you all brought up such amazing things that you did in the city, and I'm sure you didn't do those things alone. So let's think about like how you figured out how to make grad school friends, right? Like I always hear students being like, oh, I want to make grad school friends. And it's like this idea of grad school friends, but grad school friends are really important. I even think about the people I met in grad school who they were friends, but also colleagues because they were studying alongside me. So I guess my question to you all is, how did you find that community for yourself? How did you build the people who are around you, and helping you navigate your day to day? So we'll start with Alice.
Yeah, so I was very lucky because I think I was very lucky with my cohort in my program. When I first met them, we had a lot of classes together. I think the first semester in my program was mostly just my programs classes and not too many electives. So I spent time in classroom together with the same people, and everybody was really friendly. And so I had a community right there with the people I was in classes with. So I was really lucky about that. But I do know that it's not always like that. And sometimes there are programs where people are not as close as a cohort. But at the same time, there are so many other opportunities. I also right away, I went to events by the Graduate Student Life and Development Office, and also Office of Residential Services. So at those events also, I got to meet a lot of people and actually met one of my best friends now in an event, which was a ghost tour around Halloween last year. It was a ghost tour in the city, and I wouldn't have, I think, met her at all if we both weren't at that event, because she's in a different program and now we're really close. So I would say really take advantage of just kind of programming and events on campus, because you can really meet a lot of great people and make new friends. So that's how I found my community.
And fun fact is Nick led that ghost walking tour. So yeah, I always love that story. Vic or Nick, anything you two want to add?
Yeah, so I guess the way that I met my friends on Teachers College was just through classes. I was one of those students that came into grad school being like, I'm just going to do my 2 years and then move somewhere else and then just focus on my studies the entire time. And that definitely was not the case. Teachers College is such, I don't know how to describe this, a welcoming community of people. All of us are here doing our grad program and focusing on something with education. And since we're all educators, we're all very open to talking and meeting new people. And it's a very gregarious group of people here at Teachers College, I've found. And then just building off of what Allison said, there's so many other outside activities outside of just your academics, where you can meet people from other programs and even from your own program as well. So there's just so many avenues at Teachers College to be able to meet and make a solid friend group.
Vic?
Yeah, I'll quickly say I want to trademark this Denise's phrase, graduate student friends. I like that. Because I think it is different, and I think that just to both Alice and Nick's points, that you can come in thinking that what you're supposed to do is just work all the time, right? And the thing is, that's an important part of why you're here, but it's also who you're here with, right? And so I would say for me at TC, you'll notice this in any of the programs. If you get admitted, is the WhatsApp groups start happening, the every Friday drinks or things start happening, or the dinners on Sundays. For me, one of the most lovely experiences was in my first few weeks. I wasn't really sure what folks were doing. And then there was this potluck, which the students organized. And it was such a lovely kind of mix of people sharing their culture, because, food is such a great way to like express yourself. So I won't forget that as a kind of moment which we all of us remembered, because then we kind of built our kind of community together around that. So yeah, that's what I would share. And it's a great place to build community, as both Nick and Alice shared. So yeah.
Great. Thank you all. And I kind of want to like build upon this. So there are a lot of opportunities at TC, like student organizations or different groups to be a part of to really expand your network. So I'm wondering kind of if you all want to talk a little bit about the groups that you're a part of and how you made those decisions, or how that kind of fell into your lap, right? Those opportunities. So I'll start with Nick, because Nick, you're involved with quite an array of groups.
Yeah, I'm involved with too many things, I think. So first of all, I work at the Office of Graduate Student Life and Development. I'm a student life ambassador. So my position on campus is, there's two parts to it. One part is programming. So things like the Ghost Tour that Alice went on. I was on that, did the back end planning of that. And then the other side of my position is to interact and kind of like be the student GSLD like connections between the student population and GSLD and campus. So I have a cohort of students who all signed up to be in an SLA cohort, and I plan various events for them. And it's a really good way to like build a community of people if maybe you're living off campus, or if you just want some extra support, meeting other people outside of your program. So I plan like informal events, like we go to a board game cafe near campus called Hex & Co, which is really fun to go to. And we'll go play board games there. This weekend, we're going to the Grand Bazaar on the Upper West Side. So I plan just a number of bi-weekly events for my cohort to be able to sign up if they choose to. I think that's a great way to get to know other people. Otherwise, Teachers College has lots of different student groups. I'm co-chairs for two of these groups. One of them is the African Studies Working Group, which is a group of people that are trying to create, it's a group for people that are interested in working on the African continent and the diaspora. And we do meetings where we'll talk about various aspects and implications of working on the continent and the diaspora. And then I'm also co-chair for the weekly knitting circle group, which is exactly what it sounds like. We meet bi-weekly, and we have snacks and refreshments, and we just sit and knit together. It's actually a very, very fun group to be a part of. So yeah, there's a lot of different options to join and meet other people on campus.
Great, thanks, Nick. Vic or Alice?
I think I was involved in too many things when I was in my undergrad. So this time around, I kind of decided to, I didn't jump into like being in student organizations, but I was part of the Student Advocates for the Arts, which is an organization that largely stems from my program, but it is open to students from all programs at TC. And it was interesting for us because we joined as a new cohort, and then we had to kind of rebuild the organization because it was kind of, it's a long story, but it was very challenging, but which is why I actually left it. But I mean, I work at the Graduate Student Life and Development Office right now, starting this academic year, and it's been a wonderful experience. And just seeing like there are so many organizations and so many wonderful events that organizations are hosting. So if you want to be involved, there are a lot of opportunities. And also if you're looking for opportunities to work on campus, I have to say that in my undergrad, I also wanted to find, a student job, and I really struggled, and I didn't find any opportunities throughout my time there. But here I felt like, although of course the opportunities are not there is a limited number of opportunities. It's not like you'll definitely find a job, but there are opportunities, and if you really want to, it's a wonderful way to also be involved and also develop yourself professionally. And I've had a really good experience, and I feel very supported as a student who works on campus as well.
Great. Vic?
Yeah, just building on both Nick and Alice's points, I think there are so many student organizations to draw from at Teachers College. And I think what I found super helpful is there's actually a directory that's on the website, which is super helpful, because what I like is that there's a statement of each organization's purpose, mission, values, right? So you really get a sense of what the organization is trying to do and achieve. And then when you go and you participate in those organization events, then to what Alice was talking about, right? You get to know a little cohort of folks, what are their interests. What I like is folks sometimes co-author papers together, or they run a campaign together, or they invite some speakers together to speak on campus. And so I think it's a really great kind of other ecosystem, because you can meet folks in class, but when you're organizing with folks in student clubs, it's a different way of interacting, right? There's not a teacher in the room or professor, right? It's just students coming together to really spend time with each other and collect around a kind of mission or goal. And I mean, a goal can be knitting. I love that. I don't know why I haven't gone to knit yet, because I knit. So yeah, I just love that. So that's my thoughts on that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Vic, you should definitely go to the knitting circle.
Yeah.
Cool. So I do see questions are coming in. So to those listening, keep sending your questions. I promise we'll get to them. We're doing great on time. We have about 4 more prepared questions that we have we're just trying to hit different things that we know prospective students are interested in, and then we will for sure get to your questions. So the next question I have is, we have students listening, or prospective students listening today from Indonesia, Korea, Ghana. And so I'm really thinking about the international student experience. So you all have international context, right? But I know there are things unique to the international student experience. So do you have any advice for students who might be considering moving to the United States for the first time, or continuing to study in the United States, for those and making sure that TC is the right choice for them? So Alice, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I want to say that TC has a really large international student community. So if you join TC, you will not be alone. And I personally felt really welcome. And, I met people from so many different places. So that's the first thing. There are international students here for sure. And the second thing, I think there's always challenges that international students have to navigate. And I can tell you that it's going to be wonderful, and there will be no kind of challenges, but there are so many places that you can find support. There is an office for international students that is specifically for us, and you can go to their office hours or make an appointment, and they're ready to help. I also found really helpful the workshops offered by the Graduate Writing Center when I came, to just kind of understand the basics of academic writing and what is expected of me. It was really helpful as I started working on my first assignments. So Graduate Writing Center hosts regular workshops on different topics, like the APA formatting or writing a literature review, for example, which was really, also there was a workshop that I found super helpful. It was on academic reading, because you might experience that you get a ton of reading in your classes when you come here, and I was really overwhelmed because it was a lot of academic papers. But there are strategies that you can learn to get through that reading, and we have an office that offers workshops on that, so that's great. And yeah, and just being in New York, I felt this is such a multicultural city, and I feel like there are people from all over the world that live here, and just being in the city, I felt like I belong here. So that was kind of my experience, and so I would like encourage you to not be afraid of that. And finally, if you're asking about advice, again, I would say like really consider maybe living on campus, because that has been also a good experience for me, and just like not having to deal with a lot of things in terms of housing that I would if I was finding it on my own. So
great, thanks, Alice. And something I love is Alice talks to me a little bit about even ways like she's able to continue to feel connected to Latvia, even being in New York City. And I think that's where New York City offers is, I think Queens is the borough where every single language in the world is spoken. And so I think if you are an international student, wherever corner of the world you're coming from, there's also a community here that is connected to your home country. So yeah. Vic, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think Alice has covered a lot. And I think Denise has made a great point that like New York, when it comes to home away from home, like I have my New York family from India and I have my India family. It's so true. The two things I want to say is like one, to all the international folk, to my international folk, being pragmatic is really important. So as Alice mentioned, the Office of International Students and Scholars, reach out to them if you have questions about, all the forms you need or all the processes, right? Because it's important to just be very organized, because it relates to how you enroll for classes or what points you need or things like that, right? So I really want to highlight that for any international student applicants. And the second is, when I came to TC, I thought, even I want to work a job at TC so I can help to support myself, right? I worked for the Office of Access and Disabilities on campus because I attended the job fair and I attended those events. So, it's like a funny thing that people say, oh, those job fairs, what are you going to... I got my job by going to the job fair and being like, hi, I'm an international student from India. I want to really work there. And it worked, So I would say when you are at TC, these events are there for you, but they really can count if you show up. So I'd say, I always, showing up is 99% of the work. So if you show up, something will happen. So just for my international folk, there are a lot of opportunities here, but just remember to show up because they're there for you to take them. So yeah.
Yeah, those are great points. And I think something too that connects both of those points is there are so many international students at TC, so it really is on everybody's mind, right? Like, so I'm not an expert in supporting international students. I've worked with many international students, but because we have so many international students at TC, I constantly think about how to best support international students. Or I'm thinking about the visa requirements or the job, kind of the limitations on hours worked or whatever. So I think there's like just a critical consciousness of international students here at TC, where any office you interact with already has navigated supporting so many international students that they know what to be aware of. And I think something Nick might share with me as well, which I didn't mention, I'm a TC student on top of working here, is I love the diversity in the international students that we have. So in my classes, I have a student from Uganda, I have a student from Indonesia, I have a student from Korea. And so in a lot of my classes, and a lot of them are still living in their home countries because some classes are fully online, I am like learning about adult learning and leadership from all these international contexts. So even as a student who is born and raised in New York, I'm still getting this international perspective here at the college that does benefit me. And so it's just something I've really enjoyed from my TC experience. And I don't know, Nick, if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, definitely. Just same lines as you were saying, Denise. There's such a huge diversity within the classrooms, and it's always very appreciated, especially in my program, International Educational Development. About a third to 50% of the program is comprised of international students, which means that there's such a huge diversity and huge amount of different perspectives that are being shared within the classroom, which is so beneficial and such a good wealth of information and knowledge that's being shared within the classrooms because of this.
Great. So thinking about the classrooms, I'm going to combine two of our questions. So we get a lot of students who come here and they're like, I want to do research. I want to work on a grant funded project. I want to really dive into those faculty-led opportunities that will evolve my understanding of self as an academic. And then I really want to connect with faculty, right? And so I think those are two things that students really come in wanting. So I'm wondering, Vic, if you want to start us off, especially as a doctoral student, how you made those decisions, how you got involved and connected to the right people, because that is something that students do navigate for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there are two, three things to think about here. One, I think, is, when you're coming in, what I really appreciate about I see this in every program at TC, is they don't tell you, you have to know your research question day one. Like, you have to know, there's no change, that's not the approach here. The approach is to truly kind of critically examine what you want to write about, so you care about what you're writing through your program. With this in mind, the nice thing about, as we've been talking about with community building, is faculty do a really good job of connecting students to each other so they can co-author papers for conferences, go to the similar conferences that they want to in their field. And one of the most fun experiences, truly, is going to a conference where, a conference can be new, right? But you have your TC crew there, right? So your Teachers College crew there, you know how to navigate those spaces. What is it like to present at a conference or chair a session, right? These are a lot of things which many programs don't talk about. But luckily at TC, I've noticed that this is all transparently at the front of conversation, right? And the last thing I'll say is, as a doctoral student who's working on a grant-funded project right now as a researcher, I can say that it really is about seeing the opportunities that are either being posted, or even simply asking your faculty about them. Sometimes we get worried or scared, like, shall I ask? From in many cultures in India, I can tell you it's almost rude, like, should I be asking? At TC, there's more of an open culture about speaking, like, oh, you can ask a question about this opportunity, or ask how to navigate these things, because your faculty are there to actually talk to you about those things. So I would say, be open, be upfront, and look to your peers to understand what's going on. One of the biggest, and the last thing I'll say is, one of the biggest things is, you might be in your first year, but there's someone who's in their second year or fourth year or fifth year. And with them, they have institutional insights and like program wisdom, which you can really lean on. So one of the things which I would say is a great activity is, I reached out to people in my first year who were in their fourth and fifth year. And I was like, tell me what you would have told a first year if you were there. And I learned so much about navigating even just my program in the best way I wanted to, so I think those are some good things to keep in mind when you enter any program, master's or doctoral level.
Yeah. And that connects to a point earlier that Nick said is, TC really, all of us go into the health, education, and psychology industries. So like, when you ask fellow students for support or connection or advice, like, they're so willing to give it. Like in my program, a group of students leads a session every course registration cycle just to talk about every course they've taken, the workload, the syllabus, et cetera. And so it's been helpful to really rely on my peers to like navigate like what those next steps would be. Allison, Nick, anything you want to add about building relationships to faculty or getting involved with academic opportunities?
Yeah, definitely. So just kind of bouncing off what Vic had said, Teachers College is interesting, at least in my program itself, that the professors here treat you and like view you as a peer, not so much as a student. So I think building relationships with your professors and academic advisors and things like that comes very naturally. It's very rare. I've never had a professor on campus that like preferred to be called Professor so-and-so. All of them asked us to call them by their first names, which is something that was totally new for me. But I think that just kind of sets the atmosphere of the school as being more open and being more collaborative, not only with your peers, but also with faculty members. And just like reiterating what Vic had said, reaching out to your professors for information is, it's actually very encouraged within at least my program. A lot of my internship opportunities and connections that I have made with various outside agencies have gone through professors. So yeah, having that open communication is key.
Allison, anything to add?
I have something a little bit different to add. I want to encourage, whenever you are working on your research or even just assignments, still remember the connection between TC and Columbia, because for me, as I was working on my thesis, something super helpful was connecting with librarians at the libraries at Columbia University, because you can actually have a one-on-one session with a librarian where they help you find sources for your paper. And that has been really helpful. So just, remember there are so many, ways that you can find support, even outside of Teachers College.
Yeah, and that's such a good reminder, Alice. So as a TC student, you have access to so TC has its own library, the Gottesman Libraries, which has treadmills in it. But we have a really amazing library that really is dedicated to TC, but our library is open to the CU community. So as a TC student, you have full access to all the Columbia libraries, and you have access to the Barnard Library. So Barnard is the women's college that's also affiliated with Columbia. I'm a big fan of the Barnard Library. They have a whole zine library if zines are your thing. But it's really cool that within this few block radius, you have so many libraries to take advantage of, which is really rare to a college experience. And then with that, to the other points, you can connect with faculty at Barnard and Columbia. You can get involved with their research projects. You can get a job at Barnard or Columbia as well as TC. So to me, that's the exciting part of joining TC, but being a part of the CU community is you can look for all the opportunities here and build those relationships, but then you could explore next door essentially. And a lot of our faculty have meaningful relationships with our colleagues across the street as well, which really does open doors for you all. So I am going to get started on some of the submitted questions. I do highly suggest if you have a question you're listening in, please type it in and we will get to it. For some of the questions, if I might start on answering them because I'm not sure if you all have the answer, and then I'll open it up to you all as well. So the first question that we have is about if there are any Islamic groups at TC. So I can quickly talk about that. So at TC specifically, no, but it's because we have a really great relationship with religious life at CU. So at Columbia, there is an imam, there's a large Islamic student population. And again, like being in New York City, in New York City, there's a huge Muslim community. There's many mosques. There's many Islamic groups, even very active in the various college communities. So I know Columbia is very connected to the NYU Islamic community. So if you are a student who's Muslim and is coming to the college, there is definitely a community here for you to connect with, to have spaces to pray, and to get what you need for your religious traditions. And that goes for the Muslim community, but really all communities. So for our Jewish community, we have Columbia Hillel. We have many Catholic and Christian groups. We have Hindu groups. We have truly everything. So I would really recommend, if your religious identity is important to you, looking at the Columbia Religious Life website. But then again, my office tries to pull those events and highlight them in our weekly student newsletter. So anything anybody wants to add on religious identity?
If I could add, Denise, I think you've answered it really well. And one thing I would add is Earl Hall on Columbia's campus is the building which houses all these faith initiatives, and they really do care about interfaith collaboration, which is what I really love. And I want to highlight for any prospective students who are really interested in leaning into that during their time at TC, they have a fellowship which you can apply for. So where you actually get to not just attend programming, which is wonderful, which is what I do, but if you are interested in organizing programming as a student fellow, and I can tell you, this is some sensitive information, that they really are looking for Teachers College students, because education is a huge part of interfaith programming. So any folks who are interested, please avail that opportunity. But yeah, just wanted to highlight that.
Even I'm taking notes because I'm like, wow, we could advertise that a bit more.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for adding that. Nick, Alice, we're good? Cool. So the next one is, how can admitted students who want to live off campus get to know one another before moving and coming to campus? So I'm quickly going to answer, but then Nick, if you have anything. So the nice thing is that should you be admitted to Teachers College, you'll be invited to join a Facebook group. And so this Facebook group, while some of you might not use Facebook anymore, this Facebook group is very vital. Because I even joined it while I was working here, but as a new student, but it really helped me also understand what new students were talking about as we were planning orientation. And the biggest thing that people are talking about is off-campus housing. So many people will post a profile of themselves of like, hey, this is who I am. This is a picture of me. I'm looking for 2 roommates. Other people will post like, hey, these are the 2 of us. We're 2 new TC students. We're looking for a new roommate, right? So one, that's a really good place to get to know other people who are looking for similar housing situations as you and might want to live together. But also then you're getting a feel of who's living off campus and how people connect. So in that Facebook group, there's a lot of WeChats that start or group chats, either based on program, department, interest, etc. So that's where the community building happens before you get to campus. And then should you be an off-campus student and once school starts, that's when our office really does offer so many programs for you to get connected with. But Nick, any insight from you being an off-campus student and how you built community before school started?
Yeah, you definitely like touched on a lot of it. Facebook is key. My experience when I got admitted to this program, I got invited to admitted students for the International Educational Development cohort. And through that, I was able to join a lot of WhatsApp groups and different groups of people to be able to meet them ahead of time. I moved here 4 months before the start of the program. So I was here very, very early before classes started. And I was able to meet so many of my fellow classmates who are either from here or were in the same boat as me, who moved well ahead of the start of the semester. Yeah, so Facebook is probably the best way to meet and create these relationships before classes start. And then once classes start, our office has so many different things to be able to meet other students who are living off of campus.
Great, thanks, Nick. So I have one more question from the audience. So again, if you are listening to us, please ask us any question you have. No question is a bad question. We can truly talk about anything. So I'm going to ask this one, and I'll start with Vic. So the question is wondering about PhD programs at TC, if they're generally cohort-based or individual, or does it depend on specific programs? So do you want to talk about your program or context you have about other programs?
Sure, yeah. And it's a really good question, actually. So the way it works is that based on your program, and this is general across all programs, you are placed in a cohort by simple fact that you enter the program with certain folks who will be on the same timeline as you or journey as you. That's really important. So you have folks alongside of you who are submitting dissertation proposals at the same time, doing the doctoral certification exams at the same time, or the language exam if that's part of your program at the same time. So in terms of your journey towards the graduation ceremony, you all are together. Now, I think the more individualized setup of your program within that is you may have some required classes you will take with your cohort and maybe the cohort above you, but there are a lot of other elective requirements which you will just chart your own journey. So those are not kind of required, and you may not be in the same classes with your cohort. And I will say from the faculty side, your advisor will certainly give you attention. They won't be meeting with the cohort. Like if 4 of us, Denise, Alice, Nick, and I were in a cohort, like let's all chat about your advising, right? That's not going to happen. They'll have individualized advising plans for you so that you can develop your own research interests. But so it's a kind of balance between both. So, but I will say, when thinking about coming into any doctoral program, even if your peers' research doesn't feel like it's directly related to yours, don't have that be a reason not to really get to know them and interact with them. My peers in my cohort are not necessarily working on what I work on, but I learn so much by seeing them approach their research and seeing honestly them approach this program, like the TC program. So I would just highlight that in response to the question, but it's a great question. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add quickly to it. So I'm a part-time EDD student. So I think it really depends to your doctoral journey if you choose to be a full-time student or a part-time student. So Vic has a really good point. Like, yes, like your cohort is your cohort because you just start at the same time. But because my program is mostly like working professionals who do this part-time, it's so varied where people are. Like some people are taking 2 classes a semester, some people are taking 1. So that's where it's kind of like we're all a big mushy unit because it's like none of us really know where exactly we're at. So we're taking classes at all these different times. But that's where I think really every group is really great. Starting these group meetings, these WeChats, whatever, just to be like, hey, we're all doctoral students. So like, let's get coffee. Let's talk about things. Let's lean on each other. Where I think my students who are full-time doctoral students really do fully immerse themselves in the community and have like a more outline journey, where like I know I can think of very specific programs where like it's a very, very tight-knit group of students who like went through each semester together. So it does depend on your program. It depends on your status. So that's why I really ask questions to your program or department chair. But yeah, but to Vic's point, like it is a cohort because like you kind of journey together. Like you're all like, oh, it's kind of like I started this semester and that is what makes your cohort. But yeah, there is one more question for doctoral students. So I'm going to stay on it while we're on this question. So there's a question about advising. So are you assigned an advisor and how much time and attention do they give you? So Vic, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. Yeah. So both good questions, all very good questions. You are assigned an advisor at the initial part of your doctoral journey, but when you reach the dissertation stage, if you notice that there are other faculty within your program whose prior research and interests align with yours, you actually will select them as your dissertation sponsor. So that's why it's important for doctoral students to remember that the advising and sponsoring are different. Your advisor will continuously meet with you, but your sponsor will meet with you for your dissertation, like keep you on track, work with you on your chapters, think about what goals you have for your dissertation, things like that. And in terms of the guidance or advice that your doctoral advisor gives you, is honestly a large part of that is also contingent on what you would like out of the advising process. Because the thing is that your advisor will structure time across your program, so you will meet with them. It's just part of the programming journey. And I'll speak from my personal experience to this. I actually, and this sounds odd, right? But I take control of even my advising journey, because I realize that there are certain things which I really want to talk about, whether it's like professional development pieces or working for a conference publication, right? While my advisor might be focusing initially on just the program, right? Like, how are you doing in the program? How are you feeling about your classes? But as a student, you can really advocate for other areas of advising where you want more attention. And so I would really encourage that from perspective and potentially incoming students. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
That's great. Thank you. We have 3 more questions, so I want to make sure that we have time, because advising could be like a whole separate, I mean, I'm sure Alice and Nick have thoughts on advising. It's a lot of questions about advising. There is a good question here about career changers. So this student specifically is applying to the instructional technology and media for a career change from the entertainment industry. So concerned about chance of admission with no background in teaching. So I know none of us are the admissions people, right? But I guess, like, how did you all feel like about just like your preparedness for entering your program, or even people that you know who might have entered programs of study without maybe as much experience? Anyone want to start?
I can go ahead. So my program is a bit of a transition for me, career-wise. Previously, I was a high school social studies teacher, but then I did have a lot of international experiences, especially within international development with the Peace Corps. Yeah, so I came in with a little bit of pre-knowledge into what the field was. Yeah, so that's my experience.
Others? I can add quickly. I'm like coughing. I have like a coughing fit right now, so it's not catching me at a good time. So I'm in adult learning and leadership. There's some people in my program who have years and years who are like chief human resources officers, and then there's other students who like haven't held a full-time job yet, right? So I think what our program looks for is just your values and like what drives you in being interested in the field, right? And so I think even for teaching, I have worked with students in curriculum and teaching, or even IT, the MST programs, where they've never taught before, but they care about education. They've read about education. They, can demonstrate that this is a value to them and they're accepted, right? And so there's many students I have who this is their first time teaching in a classroom, but they're in a teacher certification program. So I think it really is just what you drive as kind of your driving factors through your admissions essay. And then maybe even taking the time to meet with those faculty even before you apply. So for my program, I was interested in the program, and the program director met with me one-on-one to not only hear about me, but for me to even get a gauge from her of what she was looking for in candidates for the program. So I think that's what I would recommend if you're feeling nervous, but anyone else have anything to add there? Okay, cool. The next question is, do you think your graduate program is preparing you for your future career? Whoever wants to start.
Yeah, I definitely do think it's preparing me for my future career. Not only am I getting like the theoretical background or information that I need to make informed decisions within my career, but I'm also learning a lot of practical skills within my program. Yeah, so I definitely feel prepared for it. My program hires like a lot of students, alumni from my program go on to working with the UN or like the USAID, something like that. So I definitely do feel that it's prepared. The professors in my program are amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll quickly add that just building on Nick, I'll say definitely look at the pathways in your program for where folks go. But yeah, my program has an amazing placement rate of all the graduating students to either academic tracks or non-academic. I do want to be a professor one day. I love teaching. And so again, I'm upfront about that with the folks who are advising me, which actually tailors what they talk to me about, so but yeah, I can't stop smiling because in that sense, my program really is like, and so many programs at TC really like, if you are upfront about your goals, I really do feel like the folks have the right expertise here to help you realize them. So yeah.
Alice, anything you want to add?
So for my program specifically, one of the components is an internship. It's a required internship. And so that's like one way that it definitely prepares us for a career. But also, I think sometimes maybe students are a little bit worried because like arts administration specifically is kind of a very like practical area. But we do, of course, our professors a lot of times are researchers and academics, and it's kind of like a struggle to understand, okay, like why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do this research? Like, how is it going to help me? But we also learn how like important data is in just like the professional world and things like that. So you will definitely gain skills that will be very important for you in your career. And even in my program, there is still a mix of people. Like we had a fundraising class and a marketing class that was taught by people who actually work in marketing and in fundraising and have like years of experience in those areas. So I think I definitely believe that this program is preparing me for my career.
Good to know. And something I'll add too is like, not only are the faculty connecting you to great resources and opportunities, but because in your programs, there's a range of people, some who are coming right out of undergrad, some who have worked in the industry for a long time. I feel like I'm making professional connections with so many people that should I be interested in job opportunities, I'm not just looking to my faculty for advice and networking opportunities, but I'm looking to the folks I've met in my class. And I think that's the really amazing thing about TC. We have 2 more questions. I'm going to answer the first one. So it's about, when does new student orientation for PhD students happen? And how does that relate to class registration or paying the deposit? So you are admitted at some point, and then after your admittance, they're going to say, hey, we need you to deposit by this and this time. That is usually before orientation happens. So in order for you to feel confident about depositing, I would say you might want to meet with your program. Many programs, though, do a welcome session for students who have been admitted before you deposit. So it's a good time for you to meet with the faculty. They usually bring in students, and you can ask whatever questions you have before depositing. Orientation for us happens the week before classes start. So in between that time of you depositing and orientation, you typically receive an email that says, hey, this is your advisor, connect with them. Different programs have different timelines on when they give you the PIN for registration. And that's kind of the interesting thing about TC is like, we don't have a unified approach to course registration. Every program operates differently, and there's a lot of people in the program that support you. So they have faculty members, they have academic secretaries, there's different administrators too in the academic departments. So depending on your program, like for my program, for example, I was given my advisor, she gave me my PIN right away, and I registered months before orientation. For other programs, they register you during orientation, but they'll hold your spots for you. So that's my big advice. And then orientation, we do orientation for master's and doctoral students together, but we have a separate track now for just doctoral students. So you get to know your fellow doctoral students, and we adjust some of the content specifically for doc students. But anything else about class registration when you're a new student that any three of you want to chime in on? Good. Great. And then a student's asking specifically about a program and if they're financially supported, and how many years the program will take, and what working opportunities are. So I'm just going to quickly say that specifically doctoral programs are funded differently per program. So this is where you need to go to the info session for your specific program, talk to the faculty. Some programs are fully funded, some aren't. Depends if you're full-time, depends if you're part-time, depends what fellowships are associated with the program. So that's where you really need to talk to the faculty, and even the students who do it. Years of program, again, will depend on how quickly you choose to do your program, right? Like right now, I'm taking one class a semester, so it's going to take me forever. But if I took 4 classes, it would take a different timeline. Some programs require you to be full-time, and so they'll really map out your journey for you. And some programs really allow you the flexibility if you're working full-time as well. So again, that's where you want to talk to your program, and should they offer you the opportunity to talk to older students, you can gauge with them how many years it took them. In terms of funding, financial aid, and working opportunities, so I'm going to hit the first one first, and then we'll talk a little bit as a group about financial aid. So for working opportunities, some programs have job opportunities that they really create for the students in their program, and some of them are associated with the program, but it's open to all students. That's where Alice talked about. If any of you are interested, you could go on the TC Careers website. So that has full-time jobs, part-time jobs, and student jobs on there. So you can go on there and look. The interesting thing is a lot of our students are qualified to apply for some of our full-time and part-time jobs. So that's why we really group them all together. But we did just hire our first ever student employment coordinator. So we're really hoping to offer easier ways to understand student employment in the coming year. But yes, like a lot of students do find work opportunities that are sometimes affiliated with their program. So you could become a research assistant, a teaching assistant, a course assistant. So those are all academically related. Or you could be like Alice, who's an administrative fellow, which comes with tuition points, but works hourly. Vic is a community assistant, which is an hourly or a stipend paid job that comes with housing. So there's a benefit. And then Nick has a federal work study job that is through the federal work study program, which is available to only domestic students. In terms of financial aid, packages really range. I know for master students right now, you get a package for your first year, and then it's reevaluated for your second year. That's something the college is re-examining and thinking about how do we distribute financial aid to master students for a longer period of time. But I don't know, anything you all want to add just about financing your education and things that you've discovered or would recommend a prospective student to consider?
I'll just say one thing about the doctoral journey, because it's a bit of a longer journey, is I made the wrong presumption when I came in that it's a topic that should be off conversation or something. I don't know why I made this presumption. It's your journey, right? So now I talk to folks, like I mentioned, who are in their 4th or 5th year of my program, as well as the faculty, who just gave me a full plan. Like, oh, here are all the costs associated. Here are all the other, like we don't realize that when you want to go to a conference, it costs things, right? So you may have to think about little grants or little things like that, right? So building out a financial plan does take like some time and effort. But the one lesson I want to offer that I learned is that there doesn't need to be any hesitance around asking those questions. That kind of transparency is actually important, because we want all our students, masters or doctoral or EDM or EDT, all the students, to go through their journey feeling that they can really focus on their work, right, and focus on what they want to do. So that's just what I wanted to say, is that those conversations are open conversations at TC. So yeah.
Alice and Nick, anything to add? It's about funding.
definitely think the federal work study is a good option for a lot of students. These sort of positions are typically on campus and almost always have a lot of flexibility in terms of hours and like your work schedule and things of that nature. So being a part of securing a federal work study position is, I think, a really good way to fund if you're living off campus, paying for things like rent, something like that.
Alice, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to also emphasize really, asking questions, because when I was admitted and was thinking about my finances, I actually reached out to my program manager, which is an administrator in my program, and I kind of explained a little bit about my situation, and there actually was additional funding in my department that they could offer me, and it just took that one email, and it wasn't advertised anywhere. It was just one email that I sent, and bam, I got like more money. So it's just, there are things that you don't know about, and just reach out to talk to people. And the second thing I would say is do look for outside opportunities to fund your education outside of TC, different scholarships that you might be eligible for, because unfortunately, it's not possible to cover, all of your costs, from financial aid here, like from my experience. So like, I would recommend start early and just like look for different scholarships, because there are a lot of scholarships out there. And for student jobs, I would say also, just like stay on top of like looking at the postings, and not only in the career website, but even just like Instagram. I think, to be honest, I think I found this job that I'm working at right now. I found it, either it was advertised on the newsletter or on Instagram, and I don't think it was on the website. So I was just very lucky that I saw that posting. So yeah, just like really, if you want to find a job, then I would just say like look at all the different places you can and ask people, and there are a lot of opportunities.
There are. And the jobs are also great because you get to know people, you make money, you feel more connected to the college. I love talking about student jobs. Anyways, we are at time. We're just at time. We got through all our questions. I answered some questions privately that were more individual. But if you have any more questions, I do recommend you email admission@tc.columbia.edu or at tc.edu, and somebody from the admissions team will get back to you. But I just really want to take the time to thank our 3 student panelists. They were so amazing, taking time out of their own schedules to do this. I'm really highlighting a lot of their personal journey, which isn't always easy. So I really thank all 3 of you. And for those listening, please consider us. It was so exciting. I think at most of the conversation, we retained most of our audience. So I hope that means we captivated you, and we really highlighted what TC can offer you. I promise, well, I shouldn't make promises, but I think TC is just such an amazing place to be. If you come, please stop by my office and say hi. Tell me that you came to this session. I would love to get to meet all of you. But again, please keep connecting with TC, consider us, and we'd be so thrilled to see you here on campus. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.